What did you see that you definitely weren't supposed to see? A Craigslist ad open on my father's laptop explaining that he is an excellent cocksucker. Pretended I never even saw that. Hoping I would forget. Almost didn't post it here for the same reason. Okay, non-NSFW1. I was waiting in a condo apartment lobby. I asked the concierge for the Wi-Fi password. She was not good with computers and just turned her screen to show a text file that had every important password and keycode for the building. I am talking router password, boiler room key combination, package room door code, security camera server password, their concierge email login, everything. Because she didn't want to read out each letter. She let me take a picture of it. HR at my last job accidentally sent out a list of everyone's home address, phone number, email, and if they were coming back after the layoff. A text message on my dad's phone to an unsaved number saying that he would love to be spending Christmas with his real family. I was 13. I just wanted to play Snake. Man. Edit. I am dumbfounded. I woke up to this comment section having absolutely exploded. And I don't really know what to say. The outpouring of support and love is so appreciated. Through comments and messages. The people who have shared with me their similar childhoods. I feel for you. Thank you all so much. When I was 11 I saw another kid shit in a urinal and after he was done he saw me staring at him and literally pissed his pants. Close-up photo of, probably, my dad's asshole while I was scrolling through his iCloud photos looking for a different picture. I think it had something to do with his upcoming rectal exam. Nothing was wrong with it visually but the realization of what I was looking at was absolutely horrifying. Part of my soul shriveled up and died. My sister discovered that someone had searched pregnant erect nipples on the home computer. My dad and I both denied it. And we were the only two males in the house. It wasn't me. Human bones in the bottom of a cenote in the Yucatan of Mexico. Dad told me to STFU and not swim in that area anymore. Deleted. I was at a friend's house when I was a kid. We were doing crafts on the front porch and I needed tape for something. I ran to the backyard to go ask her mom for some and when I walked through the pool fence gate, I saw her mom giving her dad a BJ on the lounge chair. I couldn't look her dad in the eyes after that. Most awkward experience I've ever had. Edit. To answer common questions. Yes, I did get the tape. I wasn't leaving without it. We had a serious project on the go. It was imperative I got the tape. Also, I couldn't look at the dad because I saw his privates and we made eye contact while her mom was a little preoccupied lol. I was helping my grandma with dementia walk to the toilet. I got her situated and turned around to give her some privacy to do her business. I hear her giggling. Turn back around and she has her shirt off and was tapping her saggy boobs so they flopped back and forth. When I was 6, I didn't know how to spell soccer but I wanted to learn how to play. When I got home, I went on the computer and tried to go to Socor.com. Huge porn site at the time. A photo clearly intended for my mom of my dad naked with a few of his friends all holding paper in front of their dicks that had happy birthday, name, on them respectively. I'm a teacher and was helping my student, 13-year-old boy, try and troubleshoot his Chromebook and get it working again. I always clear the cache and cookies because that usually helps. But because they are school computers you can't clear the history. As I opened up the tab to clear the cache and cookies I see that his latest Google search was, how to kiss. He knows I saw it. He looked so embarrassed. I am so glad we're wearing masks so he couldn't see me trying so hard not to laugh. ETA. I laughed because it was so unexpected and he definitely didn't want a teacher or any adult really to know he was trying to learn how to kiss. It was just really wholesome. My neighbor was grounded to her room and my buddy and I were in my backyard and talking to her through her window. We were going to try and get her attention but we realized her mom was in the living room masturbating lol. Once when I was 14 my dad was working as a handyman after being laid off by his company and taking odd jobs for friends and family members. He would hire me and pay me a day's work with lunch to come be his work partner, kind of a father-son bonding moment. In hindsight, anyways, one day we were working at my dad's cousin's house remodeling the master bathroom and in plain sight. On the bed was a giant dildo that we both had to pass in order to get to the bathroom. For an entire 8 hours in an empty house me nor my father acknowledged the family dildo. My grandparents were both a bit deaf. I was downstairs prepping dinner and called out to them. No response. I placed their plates on a tray instead and walked upstairs to their room. Their door half open. Saw my fully naked grandma riding my fully naked grandpa like they have no aches and pains. It's weird. Like normally they do everything in slow-mo. Apparently not. My grandpa sleeping sitting straight up with a remote control balanced on his head. After work one night, my buddy wants to have some beers and play some video games. I ended up getting done before him. So he tells me to grab a case and go to his house and his dad will let me in. So I stop at the beer store and head over. I get to his house and before I get a chance to knock, I can hear people having sex. It was so ridiculously over the top. I thought it was his dad watching porn. I could hear the woman saying stupid shit like fuck my ass with your huge cock. Just screaming. The dude was like yeah. Take it baby. Hooey. It was hilarious. Anyway, I figured his dad was watching porn. So instead of knocking, I waited in my car for a bit. My buddy shows up and asks what I'm waiting for. I told him I think his dad is jerking off in the living room because I can hear the porn. He's like FFS. So we go in expecting his dad to quickly jump up and pretend he was watching hockey or something. But nope. His dad was giving some lady a professional fucking. Guy had his hat on backwards and still had his boots and socks on. No pants. Haha like. Did you take your pants off and put your boots back on? WTF is even that? Anyway. She ended up being an escort. His dad was embarrassed. We were all embarrassed. But it was funny. About 5 years old woke up to the snow finally starting to melt. Notice a girl asleep in the garden. Went told my dad. He took one look and told me to go play in my room. Turns out girl had been asleep in our front garden for about 2 weeks buried and frozen under the snow. My Spanish teacher with my geography teacher in underwear in an empty classroom. When I was 18, I was pulling an all-nighter trying to finish an English project when I decided to take a break and grab a can of Coke from the kitchen. While walking there, I passed the living room and saw my father screwing his friend's wife on the couch. I turned right the fuck around and decided tap water from the bathroom would suffice. My mom and sister were on vacation so it was me and my dad home alone. It was past my bedtime or whatever but I couldn't sleep so I went downstairs to see what my dad was doing. As I'm going down, I see across my living room the silhouette of a woman walking by. I only saw it for a split second. So my dad came running towards me like, "Hey buddy, how's it going? Give me a hug." He held me back so I couldn't get past him to see who it was. I was hysterical because I thought it was my sister and they were playing a trick on me or something. My dad was quick to tell me, "Oh, you thought you saw a ghost? Let's call your mom and tell her you thought you saw a ghost." Years later my mom finds out my dad's been cheating and now he's married to her. That guy sucks. I walked in on my sister taking nudes. I wanted to put bleach on my eyes. Edit. Thanks for the upvotes and awards kind strangers. Deleted. When I was in high school I used to spend a lot of time exploring abandoned buildings. One time I was in a hospital. The top levels were all vandalized beyond recognition but the basement was untouched. I assume because people were too creeped out or because half the building collapsed so maybe the risk kept people away. I was dumb though so I went down. All the paperwork was still on the desks. Prescriptions laying around. Names. Addresses. Phone numbers. I was honestly amazed that all that information was just left. It felt weird because I really wasn't interested in any of it but I couldn't stop filing through rooms of paperwork untouched for years. It was just a weird compulsion because I knew I wasn't supposed to ever see any of that stuff. I live with 2 housemates. One of them has a cat which I think is pretty cute. But the other housemate, who is already pretty stoic in general anyway, almost refuses to acknowledge its existence. I popped my head into his room one day, his door was open, and I saw him with his headphones on, playing with the cat with one of those long stick toys with a string on the end. He had a pretty big smile as well. He didn't see me, and I just observed for a couple of seconds cause it was surprising and quite cute and then quietly left. I didn't bring it up because it seemed like a cute, private moment that I don't think he would have liked anyone to have actually witnessed. Edit. I thought I'd post a photo of another cute moment of the two. Reddit. User, Milk and Bones, comments, MRX9H7, housemate and cat watching F1 together I guess. UTM source equals share and UTM medium equals EOSAP pandit M underscore name equals IOSSMF. So much cheating. In HS I walked in on the manager of the cafe I worked in. Feeling up the assistant manager. I'd gone down to the office to tell him his wife and daughter were upstairs. When I was 8 we were at my dad's colleague's house for brunch and I went outside to find my dad and caught him kissing his colleague. Turned out we were there because they'd already been caught and for whatever fucking reason. My parents thought that all hanging out together would fix things. The next thing I knew my dad's colleague was like, giving me a toy to shut me up but I didn't quite get that, and spilled the beans the minute I was back inside. My parents stayed together, and then my mom caught him with the same colleague. 4 years later, because he's not very tech savvy and recorded half of a phone call with her about their ongoing affair. On the answering machine. And then she was my stepmom for 10 years and that was really not fun. Walked in on my best friend's girlfriend fucking some rondo in their apartment while they were both supposed to be out of town and I was dropping by to water the plants. Admittedly. At like 2 a.m. after having been out drinking all night. But I had permission and a key and she absolutely knew my presence was a possibility. Rondo threatens that he's a high-powered lawyer and I'm like bro. And then he threatened to kick my ass for breaking in and scaring them. Or something. But I'm just laughing hysterically at this asshole trying to threaten me in his situation. So I did the most dickish and smartest drunk thing I've ever done. And took a photo. With the flash, truly a Kodak moment. Told her she had a week to tell my friend or I would. Old friend's mom made a video diary about cheating on his dad with multiple men. And left it in a box with all of our BMX tapes. One day I borrowed all the tapes for a school project. Yeah. Same friend getting pegged by someone who was not his girlfriend. Ironically, when I was cheated on, I did not walk in on it. My manager finger blasting the older cashier in the canned goods pantry. Edit to clarify. This was a bowling alley. I was a cook and had already closed and cleaned but after I had clocked out and gone to my car. I forgot I was told I could take the leftover Martinelli's apple cider from our New Year's Eve bash earlier that week. Walked in to grab it and there they were. I was sitting on a futon watching TV in my dorm room next to my buddy. He was snapping his GF and I look over and he just opened up a pic of her vajayjay she sent him out of the blue. I turn away instantly. He peeks over at me and I say, man this show crazy. I think I fooled him. I once saw my Christmas presents early. When I was 13-ish. I went into our computer room just in time to finish seeing my dad send an email that said I love you and some other stuff to a woman that wasn't my mom. He tried to cover my eyes and act like he was joking around. I promptly left and went back a while later. I tried getting in his email but he had changed the password. We all knew it because his email was used to log in to a lot of stuff by the family. I never told my mom. Few years later, he divorced my mom and she asked me for help getting proof of him cheating from the laptop he had also used. I found graphic Craigslist messages that he had sent and received. Just gonna add a PSA here to parents. Don't fucking ask your child to do this. Take it to a goddamn PC shop and save your child the emotional and mental scars. When I was still married, my, then, wife had left her phone on to run to the bathroom while I was in bed. I looked at it for the time. And found it was left open to a secret Gmail account she was using for sending literally hundreds of nudes back and forth between many dudes. For years. Up to that night while she was fully 6 months pregnant. Mostly original stuff too. I think that hurt more. Thanks people for all the comments and sharing. It was actually healing in a way, so really thanks everyone. Was looking for a video I shot on vacation on my dad's phone. Found my stepmom's nudes in the process. Why is my most liked Reddit comment about seeing my stepmom's tits? I fucking hate this app, man. In my high school Spanish class, our teacher had taped, VHS, a telenovela for us to watch. When she put the VHS tape in, there was about 25 seconds of a porno that played. A topless woman moaning, out of a class of around 30 kids. Only about 5 of us looked around at each other and locked eyes with a, did anyone else just fucking see that? Look. Our teacher must have taped over an old porno VHS of hers. Deleted. Was working on a school project with some kid. Opened a folder where I thought we saved some of the videos for the project. It was nothing but his dad's bestiality porn. I'll never forget the look on that kid's face. His parents got a divorce like month later. And he moved away. A man fell off a skateboard in front of my house. Hit his head, he didn't have a helmet. And then bled to death on the sidewalk while the ambulance was coming. Edit. Kinda feel weird about this being my most upvoted comment, skeptical smiley face. Feels like I'm benefiting for this poor man's death. I'll try to paint the scene. It's a sweltering summer day in a sketchy downtown parking lot. I'm sitting in my car having a smoke. I see a guy push over a portable washroom with another guy inside. The poor dude was covered head to toe in the contents of a hot city toilet. I could smell it from my car. This guy obviously flips out and he starts beating the living hell out of the dude who pushed over the toilet. He gets the guy on the ground, picks up a huge cement brick and repeatedly smashes it on the guy's head. It was a horrific scene. Nobody knew I was there and I had to testify in a court case years later. When I was in high school, I saw one of my best friend's mom naked. She hadn't expected us to arrive home. So she took a bath and left the door ajar. I was desperate to pee. So I went barging into the bathroom just as she was stepping out of the tub and stretching to reach a towel rack. I was terribly embarrassed and apologetic. But not entirely sorry. My brother opened his Google Chrome in front of me and I saw Hentai Haven in the most visited section under the search bar. Me and my brother work at the same place. Something came up and I needed to ride with him to work that day. He knew what time I was coming to his house and everything. My wife dropped me off there. I walk in without knocking. Because hey, he knew what time I was coming. I walk in and him and his wife are straight up humping on their couch. He's screaming to get out and I look like I'm trying to find the invisible camera to make the Jim Halpert expression in. Edit. I'm so surprised I got so many upvotes. Let me know if you want to hear the story of when I caught my best friend masturbating. My family owns a liquor store. We also live in a busy street. I was around 13. Next to my bed was a window that allowed me to see outside while still in bed. So, one night I was doing exactly that. And I see 3 drunken people, 2 dudes and a girl, walking down the middle of the street. Arguing about something. Suddenly, one of the dudes pulls something out of his pocket, which I now know OT was a knife of sort, and stabs the other dude in the chest, upper right part of the chest. Then came the blood. There was so much blood. I called the ambulance and they told me to call the cops because they can't respond when it is unsafe. So I did. They came around 30 minutes after I called and the ambulance got there 10 minutes after that. The stabber dude and the girl just ran away when it happened. Like this wasn't the first time they saw themselves in that situation. I was 14 and working as the turn-down girl in a fancy hotel, put out the chocolate and lay out the robe. I went to service a room. Knocked several times before entering. And saw 2 extremely flexible people having very enthusiastic sex. I was a virgin and barely even understood sex. So I just kinda stared at them for a second before I realized what was happening. I shut the door and hung a spare "Do Not Disturb" sign on their door. I hope they didn't see me. I'm pretty sure they didn't. They were very focused. I've tried to recreate their positions from memory and I've never been in shape enough to do it. Good for them. But jeebus was I traumatized. Use the deadbolt correction. Security latch on your hotel door. People. Edit. You horny bastards. The best I can explain is standing face to face, but one of her feet was on his shoulder. Looked like an octopus escaping a mesh bag. When I was 11 or 12 I walked in on my older brother masturbating. His back was turned so luckily all I saw was his ass. As I walked in on him I saw his mattress falling back into place, so being the curious child I was, I went to see what was under his mattress on a later day when he wasn't home. I was hoping for porn. 'Cause growing up in the 90s in a religious household meant it was super hard to come by. But no. What I found was much worse. I found about 4 dozen little zip-top snack baggies full of cum. Bizarro Wuxtree. A music and comic shop in Athens. Has lots of storage boxes all over the place. During one visit, I opened one and found a message the staff put inside. Stop being a nosy little turd. I couldn't help but laugh. My mom and stepdad's duffel bag of sex toys and German porn VHS tapes. It was in 1969. 10 years old, living out in the country in Ney, Ohio. I was out in the backyard and heard tires screech and then a loud crash. Went in the house and told my mom to call the ambulance, and I ran out and down the road a couple hundred yards to where the car crashed into a telephone pole. The guy's head was laying in the ditch. Rest of his body still in the car, mostly. I was at a work-related retreat for a week and ended up sharing a room with a guy from a different site. It was my first time meeting him, but we hit it off pretty well from the get-go. The last night I was there, I walked into our room and found him in bed with one of my male coworkers. Without missing a beat, I did a 180 and walked out the door without saying a word. As I was walking away, my coworker angrily whispered, "I thought you said you didn't have a roommate." For some reason, my roommate thought I was going to leave a night early. But that didn't happen. Ended up spending a couple of hours at the main cabin chatting with some folks so they could have their fun. I don't work there anymore, but I remember every time I would run into said coworker, he would always try to avoid chatting with me. I definitely didn't care if he was sleeping around. But, in retrospect, it was probably more embarrassing for him than it was for me. Was fixing an elderly neighbor's laptop that had nudes of his wife on the desktop with the thumbnails at maximum size. It's like he wanted me to see them. I will say though, she had a bangin' bod for a woman in her 70s. I think it's safe to say he thought the same. I had a tree house in my backyard. The neighbors behind us had a pool. I was 12, their daughters were 18 and had their boyfriends over. They end up jumping topless into the pool while I was chilling in the treehouse reading. Deleted. My mom sucking cock on the couch. Dad jacking off. Sister about to get rammed by her BF. Edit. To clear some things up. No, it was not all at the same time. Saw my sister first when I was about 10. Mom my second a couple years later. My dad several years later. Sister was in my room. There was no need or reason I should have to knock on my own bedroom. Right? I walk in and she's laying naked and spread eagle and her BF is naked crawling toward her at the end of the bed. Had my friend Jonathan with me, but I don't think he saw anything. Quickly exited the room and then the house. She did need to lock the fucking door. Not sure why she liked my room, but she fucked in there often it seems. I remember another time she called the house and asked me to clean up a used condom. My mom was in the living room and it was late at night. This was a few years after her and my dad split up, so she was back on the dating, fucking scene. Got up late to get a drink and saw it. Didn't see much detail but could tell what was going on. Since it was in the living room. No doors to knock on. She saw me too and yelled my name. Ran back to my room and covered up and acted like I was asleep. She came back and checked on me and I didn't respond, and I guess she decided to leave it alone due to embarrassment. Dad was living by himself. He called and asked if I could bring him food before he went to work. I agreed. He said just come in when you get here. Door will be unlocked. I get there with food and he's whacking it on the couch with porn in the VHS and on the TV. He got up and ran to his room. I quickly exited the house and came back in a few minutes later. We acted like nothing happened. Dropped the food off and left. I was at my buddy's house one day and I had to use the restroom very badly. He was on the couch on his phone and I assumed his girlfriend was in the kitchen. I don't mean that in a bad way. She was recently in the kitchen on a phone call and I just assumed she was just on her phone there still. Well, I go past their dining room and into the hallway where their bathroom is. I open the door and his girlfriend is taking nude photos of herself. Needless to say, I stepped out and quietly apologized. Almost right after that she walked out and I avoided eye contact. But I did get to use the restroom, so it wasn't all that bad. My mom's phone got a notification while it was charging. Curious. I just checked to see what it was. It was a text message from some guy saying, "I'm going to have your pussy for breakfast." I've never checked her phone since. Was working at a hotel during college and saw my lab partner get a room with the professor. I didn't see nothing. My aunt sent a picture of her tits to my mom after she got them done. I happened to be the one using the phone when the message came through and opened it without expecting anything like that. When I was 14, I was at my cousin's house and we were supposed to be out swimming, but I had snuck back into the house to steal beer and I caught my aunt pegging my uncle. He gave me $100 on the spot to keep quiet. Every time after that when I would see him, he would always slip me anywhere from $20 to $50. Finally, when I was about 19, I told him, "It's all good, dude. You do you." He gave me a hug and we have been thick as thieves since then. Edit. Open mouth smile, tears of joy rolling on the floor laughing. It wasn't a 5-year-long extortion racket. I was a kid and it took me a while to process and understand what I had seen. I just knew that he was freaked out about the whole incident and didn't want anyone to know. So I kept his secret. But I definitely wasn't going to turn down the cash. Later, I could see that things were still awkward between us and I just wanted to clear the air. Crossing the street on Poplar in Memphis, those of you that know it, right near the homeless shelter. Old man crossing the street up a bit gets hit by a car. When he lands, his skull just sort of opens up. His brains landed about 100 feet away from me on the pavement. He did not make it. This may be a bit different, but I was a little kid and watched the Challenger accident from my yard just outside Cape Canaveral. It never should have happened in the first place and was entirely preventable, but that's another story. No one should have seen that, let alone a child. A BDSM porn video starring a girl who I went to high school with who had recently graduated. I don't know who originally found it or how, but once they did, a lot of people around school ended seeing it. A member of parliament in my country, Canada, showed his honorable member to the whole House of Commons earlier today. When I was a kid, somehow a digital camera appeared in my house. At the time I didn't know where it had come from, but it was there. Once I was lurking around and saw it on the shelf, so I took it and started taking pictures. But my pics were bad, so as I started to view them to erase them, I realized it had more pictures. So I keep watching them, till I saw one of my sister on her knees, sucking dick. Later I found out that the camera was a gift to her from an older guy she met online. I just stopped thinking about it and never looked back. Just erased that memory from my mind. Until now, I guess. My grandmother's vagina when my mom and I were lifting her onto her wheelchair after she attempted suicide. I lived in deep South Texas for a few years after graduating college. My coworkers and I used to go to this dive bar to play pool and get plastered on the weekends. One night there's an older dude we'd never seen before who's whacked out of his mind on something. He keeps wandering around from table to table and talking to whoever was sitting there. At one point I noticed he kept scratching his nose each time he went to a table, and it occurred to me he was probably looking for coke. Soon enough he shows up at our pool table and starts asking us if we'd like to party with him. Can we help him find some party favors? Dude is halfway to the moon. Not really all there. We try not to engage him and eventually he moves on. After a while I don't notice him in the bar anymore. At this point I'm starting to get pretty drunk myself and realize I really have to pee. So I start toddling towards the bathroom and step inside. As soon as I get through the door I look up to see two very large and very angry men holding Party Guy up against the wall, punching him and threatening him. Party Guy has a look of blissful horror on his face. As soon as they realized I was there, the two men froze and slowly swiveled their faces towards me. I just kind of sheepishly stared at them for a moment. It occurred to me that I should probably just turn around and leave. But man, I really had to go. My booze-addled brain determined that not peeing was not an option, and I proceeded to shuffle over to the urinal while the two men stared at me. I slowly undid my belt, staring back at them the entire time with a concerned look on my face. Pee immediately started gushing out of the floodgates. We all stood there, staring in silence, as I proceeded to relieve myself. Eventually I finished, did up my belt, and turned to leave. I decided it was probably okay to skip washing my hands this one time and went straight for the door, everyone's eyes following me the entire way. As I was about to step through the door I gave a sympathetic glance towards Party Guy. With a mournful tone he muttered, "I don't think I'm gonna be partying tonight," and the door swung shut. I tottered my way back to my coworkers and informed them that perhaps now was the time to make our exit, and we all walked home. We never did see Party Guy again. In high school I found a document on my dad's computer that was basically a diary of his massive crush on another woman. I don't know why I opened it and it felt really bad, but he probably shouldn't have kept it on a computer he let me use. It was weird, but I never told anyone and tried not to think about it. My parents are still together and they seem, mostly, Happy. Edit. I appreciate all the comments trying to comfort me that this is normal. But the fact remains I definitely was not supposed to see that. As a kid I just felt really sad for both of my parents. I figured they were just staying married because they didn't believe in divorce. But since I've actually been in relationships now I get that that's just a thing that happens. I went on a road trip with my grandma when I was 15. My mom let me borrow her suitcase. Pretty sure she forgot that she'd stashed an envelope of very dirty photos of her and my stepfather. About a dozen. In various acts. With various people and objects. My grandma walked in as I discovered them and I was in a panic fearing she might ask to see the photos I was looking at. Thankfully my aunt distracted her and I was able to hide them away in the pocket where I'd found them. It was quite an awakening. A big pile of blow, like fist-sized, on the counter in the men's room at a corporate Christmas party. I was hiking in a forest with some friends. And as we continued on the trail, the mound of rocks on our right side opened up to more forest. Myself and one of my friends were leading the other two by a couple of yards. And we both briefly saw a couple having doggy-style sex several hundred feet into the forest on that right side. My friend and I gave each other that "did you see that shit too?" look. By the time my other friends caught up the couple had split and we couldn't see them anymore. It was like 2 p.m. in broad daylight off of a main road. Which was the weirdest part. The insides of my partner's abdomen during a C-section. I was told don't look over the divider and did anyhow. I was mortified for days. Don't look over the divider. When I was a kid, maybe 8 years old, I went over to visit my friend who lived across the street. I'd often come over unannounced and just knock on their door to ask if my friend wanted to hang out. So I get there and knock on the door and wait for it to be answered. No one comes but I can hear noises indicating that someone is home, so I knock again. My friend would often play video games with headphones on and would be slow to answer the door. So I just keep waiting and knock again. Unsure why it's taking so long for the door to be answered. My friend's dad walks into the hallway to try to spy through the glass door to see who it is. He stands there fully naked, dick swinging, and we make eye contact through the glass. I turn to walk away, but he sees me leaving and approaches the door and opens it. At this point I see a woman appear behind him who was very naked and very much not his wife. My friend's dad panicked and just stares at me. I panic too and ask if his son, my friend, is home. He awkwardly said, no. He's not here, and decides that now might be a good time to finally cover his nakedness. I don't say anything else and just turn to leave. At which point my friend's dad just blurts out, don't leave. I look back, shocked and confused. He hurriedly leaves the room for a few seconds, while I'm forced to say a very awkward hello to the naked lady standing in my friend's house. The dad comes back and hands me a fistful of cash and says, don't tell anyone, or words to that effect. At the time I didn't comprehend why he was giving me money. So I refused it and just walked back home. It wasn't until years later that I fully comprehended what I had witnessed and why my friend's mother kicked their dad out of the house soon after that. TLDR. When I was a kid I went to my friend's house and accidentally caught his dad having an affair. He tried to bribe me not to tell anyone, but I was too young to comprehend the situation. A collection of child porn and bestiality images from the dark web that someone was trying to publish as a book on Amazon. I think the owner thought that if they didn't include any sexual keywords in the book metadata, the reviewers wouldn't notice it. ETA. I used to work on the book review team. My dad sucking on my mom's titty. I was 28. Caught my stepdad looking at private ads for military hookups. Decided not to tell my mother in fear that it would worsen her depression and cause her to do something terrible. Plot twist. We got into an argument a few days later, and me being an adolescent, but maturing kinda, decided to write down my feelings. I let everything loose. Something along the lines of, you don't even know how to keep your husband happy. Ultimately tore it up and threw it in the trash. Ended up getting kicked out and moving back to Arizona, not knowing why my mom hated my guts. She died the day I arrived back. Come to find out she found the ripped up note and pieces it together, leading to me getting kicked out and her overdosing on her medication. Didn't know about her finding the note until 3 years later. She found it, told my grandmother, and my grandmother took out a lot of spite on me when she died. Said I was a rotten human being calling her every name in the book. I denied it cause I didn't even think of the note. Grandmother told me on her deathbed and mailed me the note that was taped back together. I felt awful. 2 for 1. I saw something I shouldn't have and so did my mother. RIP. My dad was cheating on my mom with a coworker. I was looking for a picture to send to my grandma for a Christmas card when his mistress texted him a question about what time they were meeting tomorrow. Curious. I scrolled up and saw a picture of her boobs with my dad's response being, "Daddy likes," with an eggplant emoji and water droplets. I showed my mom the texts right after I finished throwing up. Edit. For those wondering. No. She never left him. He begged for her to not leave him, and since she doesn't have income or friends, she stayed. My company's entire payroll on a spreadsheet. Someone left it on the printer. Used the info to get a way past due raise. Naked men wrestling on my mom's laptop, not gay porn. It was actual wrestling in a ring. Just with their soft dicks out, when I was like 9. She later came out as a lesbian. So I'm not sure what that was about. Looking through my dad's photos for pictures of my cat. Saw one of his girlfriend's boobs instead. Never again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.